Hey friends, it's Brianna and welcome back to Brianna's Bookshelf. So today we're going to be doing my March wrap up, which is a little late, but hey, it's better late than never, right? So we're going to move from some books that I didn't rate all the way up through my top rated books. So starting with the books that I did not rate, the first one is Bohemian by Kathryn Nolan, and this is a contemporary romance about a guy who inherits his grandfather's bookstore in like rural Northern California, and a model comes to do a shoot in his town, a famous model, and there is like a slow burn romance between the two of them. She is, you know, this famous model and he is this kind of like nerdy guy who's like really into reading and stuff. And I wanted to read the book because of that like kind of matchup. But the reason I didn't rate it is because I like really was not in the mood for contemporary romance when I read this book, and I really just like skimmed through it and feel like I didn't really give it a full chance. So I would feel bad giving a low rating when I like honestly was just like kind of fast forwarding through it and not really like going that deep with it. So if I had to rate it, it would definitely be a lower rating, like a 2-star, but we're gonna say not rated officially on Goodreads because I really did not give that one that much of a chance. Just wasn't in the right mood for it. The other book that I'm not rating this month is The Last Unicorn by Peter S. Beagle. So you may have heard of this book or seen the movie before. I've actually never seen the movie and had not read the book before, but I know that it's kind of a children's classic. So I wanted to check it out since I had a physical copy of the book given to me. And I liked it a lot. I thought it was like really fun fairy tale vibe. We're basically following the last unicorn to exist. She believes she's the last unicorn to exist, and she teams up with some other people to go to look around and find out if there's other unicorns, and they go to this king's castle and try to find out, like, because he has all this power, whether there's other unicorns there. And yeah, it was kind of an interesting story. I'm not reading it because I feel like if I had read this as a kid, I would have been like obsessed with it, but now I'm like, it's okay, it was fun. But yeah, I feel like for a book like that, your kind of childhood nostalgia really plays a big part into it. So glad I read it, but I don't really feel ready to commit to a rating on that one. Moving into books that I did rate, starting with 2 stars, we have Ghost World by Daniel Clowes. And this is a graphic novel, and this was published by like an independent publisher here in Seattle, so I wanted to read it for that reason. But unfortunately, I am really not a fan. It's basically following these 2 teenage girls who live in this kind of like small rundown town, and it's just like a bunch of random scenes of like their life. Both are very like pessimistic and kind of like oddball-ish. And there was moments that I thought were interesting, but overall it just like had a really weird tone and vibe that I wasn't into. And I just felt like it was really negative and I didn't really kind of get the point of the story or feel like I got anything from it. I do think the art style is kind of cool. Like I like how it's all kind of like this greenish bluish tone, gives it like a very atmospheric feeling, but yeah, I just wasn't really into the story. Okay, moving into my 3 stars, we have Banyan Moon by Thao. Now, this is a book that wasn't really on my radar. I actually read this because my mom picked it up and read it, and then she enjoyed it and gave it to me. And I thought it was okay. I liked it, but not a big fave. To be honest, I feel like if I was really going to think about my enjoyment level of this book, it was maybe more even like a 2.5 star. So perhaps I should edit my rating on Goodreads. But basically, we're following this girl who grew up in Florida. I think she lives like somewhere in the Northeast now and has like this successful boyfriend, and she's a successful illustrator, but she kind of feels like she's playing pretend in this life and doesn't really relate to it because she grew up in an immigrant family from Vietnam, very, very poor in Florida. And she finds out that her grandmother, who she was extremely close to, has passed away. So she goes back to Florida to deal with this, and her mother and her are a little bit estranged. They don't have the best relationship, but we're actually kind of just going through this familial tale of these three women, the daughter, the mother, and the grandmother, and we're learning different things about their kind of family's legacy through each of their perspectives, which is usually not my thing at all. I'm not really into this intergenerational saga sort of story. However, I did really relate to the main character, Anne, how she had such a strong relationship with her grandmother and kind of the feelings of grief she had when her grandmother died. That resonated for me a lot, so that was something positive I got out of this. Otherwise, I felt like the rest of the story to me was just kind of slow and dragged a little bit, and yeah, I just wasn't super excited about it. My next 3-star was The Hour of the Star by Clarice Lispector, and this is a book about a young girl who lives in, I believe it was Rio, and it's all told from the perspective of this like imaginary man who's writing about her, and so he's observing like what she does, and it's a very short little book, and it's pretty strange. Just like the writing style is very odd. It's definitely heavily literary. I know there's a lot of people who are big fans of Clarice Lispector because of her literary writing style. I had never read anything by her before or didn't really know anything about her style, so it was certainly interesting to go into, but I don't know that it was for me. This girl that we're following in Rio, she's extremely poor. She like works all day. She lives with a bunch of other roommates, doesn't really have a family or friends, but she finds a lot of joy in like the small things in her life, and it's just kind of, yeah, just like living in the moment, not really realizing how poor or unfortunate she is compared to other people. I would say overall the story was strange and I didn't quite connect with the writing style, but every once in a while there were some really good quotes that really kind of got my attention, and that's what bumped it up to a 3-star. And this was also a book that like I really wanted to enjoy, and I had high hopes for enjoying this writing style and clicking with this author. So perhaps I'll try something else by Clarice Lispector in the future, because moments of this book I found really inspiring and interesting, but overall it was just okay. Another book I rated 3 stars was A Fate of Wrath and Flame by K.A. Tucker. And this is the first book in a fantasy series or fantasy romance series. And I haven't heard a ton about this series, but I was actually interested to try it when I saw that Fairy Loot was coming out with this really pretty special edition version of this series, which I'm not gonna buy, but I did want to read the first book to see if I was like really into it, because the books were so pretty I kind of wanted to buy them. But alas, the first book was a 3-star, so probably not going to continue, or if I do, at least I won't be buying those special editions. And in this book, we are following this girl named Romeria, and she lives in New York City in the modern day, and she is like a pickpocket, a thief, and she works for this crime ring. And early on in the book, she meets this mysterious woman who asks her for a favor and basically like kidnaps her away from the crime ring that she currently works for. And when she agrees to this favor, she actually gets thrown into another world. So she is Romeria, but in like a whole another like world or dimension that is like this fantasy world. And this is a really interesting concept. I certainly thought it was a unique book because of this. It's like being put into someone else's body. But I didn't like always love that concept, because there was a lot of like her trying to figure out what was going on, who was who, because she was thrown into quite contentious situation where she was kind of like an enemy of the king in that world, and there was just like a steep learning curve, which did keep things interesting in some aspects, but I also felt like it dragged a little bit. So I liked it, but I'm still unsure, on the fence of if I'll continue the series or not. Then I also read The Awakening, which is the Zodiac Academy book 1. And I've been wanting to read this series for so long. I've heard so much about it. I've heard it's super addicting, and that like maybe the writing can be hard to get into because it's not the best, but that the story overall is super fun and grips you. So I finally tried it and I liked it quite a bit. I think so I rated it 3 stars, but I think I'm actually gonna bump it up to a 3.5, because now that I'm talking about all these books, I definitely feel like I enjoyed The Awakening more than all of these other 3-star books that I just talked about. So I think we're bumping her up to a 3.5. But basically, if you don't know what the Zodiac Academy is about, it follows these 2 twin girls, Tori and Darcy, and they live in kind of our modern world. They are foster children and they've been like treated really badly by the system. But they meet this random man one day who basically tells them that they are like the long lost children of the king and queen of the Fae world, and that they need to come back to claim their inheritance since their parents have been killed and go to the magical Zodiac Academy for the Fae. So this starts off just like super well. They get thrown into this world, and Zodiac Academy itself is a super brutal school. This is like a bully romance, which I've never really read before, and I'm still unsure how I feel about that, but that really sets the tone that just like all the students are kind of terrible to them, and there's constantly drama, constantly fights, things like that. But one of the things that I really liked about it that I thought was so interesting and unique is how many different creatures are in this world. So it has like a lot of different aspects, like it's focused on the zodiac signs like you get from the name Zodiac Academy. So there's different aspects to these characters based on their zodiac signs. They are also all Fae, but they are different divisions of Fae, which can give them different powers and basically make them be different magical creatures. So in this book we have like vampires and werewolves and sirens and all kinds of creatures, but they all kind of fit under the label of Fae. So I thought that was super cool, and it makes it a little all over the place, so I can tell why people say like, oh, this isn't that serious of a book, because it's definitely just like kind of there for the fun vibes, and the world doesn't necessarily feel super like, I don't know, like it doesn't make a ton of sense. It's just like chaotic, let's throw in all these creatures, but it's very fun, so it worked for me. And I do think I want to continue this series because I've heard so many people saying like, you have to just get through the first book. And well, I thought the first book was fun, I didn't love it, but if everyone's saying that later books are better, maybe I'll end up falling in love with this series after all. So I'm excited to keep trying it and see what I think about the next books. Then finally, my 4-star books, because I unfortunately didn't read any 5 stars in March, but I did read 2 4 stars. And the first was 6 Scorched Roses by Carissa Broadbent. And this is a novella that's in the Crowns of Nyaxia series. So I think it's supposed to take place like in between The Serpent and the Wings of Night and The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King, but I read it out of order because I've already read those 2, and I'm just now reading 6 Scorched Roses. And it does follow some characters that pop up in The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King, but they're kind of background characters. So it was really fun to get to see their story more close up, and I really liked this story. It was really beautiful. So it follows a human girl named Lilith who lives in like the human lands in this world, and in her town it's been cursed by one of the gods so that everyone has this disease that makes them die really young and basically like waste away into dust. And she is a scientist and she wants to find the cure for this disease because her sister is suffering from it. She's ill as well herself, and this is just like what brings her motivation in life, is trying to cure the people that live in her town and her loved ones. She ends up recruiting the help of Vale, who is a vampire who lives in their like the outskirts of their town, and it's kind of this like pariah in their community. Like everyone is scared of him and avoids him, but yes, he has left the Obliterates, I think that's what the vampire world is called in that book. Yes, is living there, and she asks him for help with curing the disease by being able to study his blood. And the two of them gradually form this kind of friendship and get closer and start to form a relationship. And I think the relationship between the two of them was really beautiful. I don't love them quite as much as I love Oriah and Rain from The Serpent and the Wings of Night, that duology, but I do think that they're really wonderful, and Carissa Broadbent can really write a romance. She does a great job. My final book read in March for 4 stars was Heir by Sarah J. Maas. So this is the next book for me in the Throne of Glass series, and in this book, honestly, a lot happens, and I can't really reveal too much because it's like in the middle of the series, but I did enjoy it, and I'm excited to continue on. So far, none of the books in the Throne of Glass series have got to be a 5-star for me, which is really interesting because I absolutely love like all of the Court of Thorns and Roses books and all of the Crescent City books. So Throne of Glass is not quite it for me yet, but I'm going to keep going because I've heard that the ending is amazing, and I'm hoping that that's where it will get me and kind of draw me in more. Basically, the primary plot of the beginning of Throne of Glass is we're following the assassin Selena Sardothian, and she is basically saved from slavery to become the king's champion and fight in this series of challenges. And that's where we start off, and we've got all our characters from the first book, but everyone's developing and changing and forming new relationships and growing as people in this book, which is fun to see, and I am curious to see where it will go next. Alright, thanks everyone for tuning into my March reading wrap-up. Let me know down below if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next one. Bye!